selected a passage from our AA Big Book, and then I'll hand it over to Paul, who will talk about it for a while before we open the room up for questions. Okie doke, so here we go. Today, we're going to page 92 of the Big Book. Starting with, if you are satisfied that he is a real alcoholic, begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. Show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents the normal functioning of the willpower. Don't at this stage refer to this book unless he has seen it and wishes to discuss it. And be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. Let him draw his own conclusions. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him that possibly he can if he is not too alcoholic. But insist that if he is severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. Talk about the condition of the body and mind which accompany it. Keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it will serve some good purpose. But you may talk to him about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. You will soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, of the traits of the alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he is alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he has become very curious to know how you got well. Let him ask you that question, if he will. Tell him exactly what happened to you. Stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it empathetic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. How's that do you, Paul?
Good, Mickey. Thank you. Paul Alcoholic. I like the statement, he's not too alcoholic. If he's not too alcoholic, if he's just a little alcoholic. I like when that where that tape measure is. All right, let me see. You're too alcoholic. Let me get up to the wall. Let's match. You're about 6'8", and you're just too alcoholic. If you were just less alcoholic, everything would work. But I have always liked my experience when I came in. You know, some of the life preservers when I was sitting there listening to people share was, you know, mini understandings of my predicament, because obviously when you're in the predicament, it doesn't really tell you much about the predicament. So when I was sitting listening to people share, I started to have understandings. sort of crystallized that had no chance when I was using. And one of them was this idea of it was a disease, yeah? And I remember my head grasped that, and it gave me a lot of relief, a lot of forgiveness, because a lot of the shame and guilt is obviously based that I did all this shit, and I should have known better, and therefore if I knew better and I still did it, I'm bad, you know, something, and more like a moral, religious badness, yeah? And maybe unredeemable, and really that's when the seemingly hopeless state appears to be hopeless, yeah, because you feel you've done too many fucked up things, really, and there's no forgiveness available. So bring on the bring on the shit, really. And so this idea of disease really took hold of me. And I remember the first time. Well, I just share. I was out with my friend. We used to ride motorcycles, and he had his girlfriend, and I had my hopeful to be girlfriend on the back of mine. And we were driving around, and we came back to San Francisco, and I was about, I don't know, 6, 8 months sober. I don't know, around there. And this idea of disease had taken hold. And so we went up to his apartment, and as we were going up, this woman went down. She had a pair of blue jeans on, and she had all paint all over her pants and stuff. And so I just noticed that. We went in his house, his apartment. He forgot something. He went down to the bike. When he came back up, he said, "Hey, my neighbor would like to talk to you." And I thought that maybe he told her I was a house painter and I was going to give her some advice about painting. And so she came into the living room, and I was sitting there with Wendy, and he was with his girlfriend, and I'm trying to impress Wendy, you know. And this girl comes in and says, "Hello, Paul, do you remember me?" And I didn't. She says, "You owe me $500. And I had an apartment somehow in Santa Cruz, California. And if I got some unlucky person to move in, they would put a down payment, but that would go to me. It would never go to the landlord. I would just spend the money. So she had lost a little weight. I didn't recognize her, or had gained weight. And so she caught me with my pants down, basically. And so there I was, the emperor with no clothes. But I didn't feel, the strategy that comes from being caught and guilty and shameful. It didn't kick in. And I felt like, truly, I looked at her and I said, I just want to tell you what I did to you, I would have done to anybody unless you could physically stop me, really. And I had this aspect of disease. And then I made it, I said, yeah, I'm going to pay you back. I didn't have it then, but then I'd send her a check. She ended up moving away from there. I'd send her a check, and every time I signed the check, I said, "You're only seeing this because I'm in AA," basically, because that was the truth. And when making amends, it's important to mention you're in a program of recovery, I feel. That's how I was directed to do it. So, and I ended up, it ended up her calling me for counsel and shit like that. So I got put to use, and I saw. So these understandings, they can have weight. Yeah, they can actually bring a new one. They can bring a new vision, so to speak, in your daily occurrences. If you start recognizing certain things, you see other things differently. It's just the way it works. Yeah, this is like the spiritual awakening. So I had that feeling of that idea of disease, and then it built on that further and further, because here they're talking about working with this person. A lot of the stuff they're describing is done with meetings now, yeah? So people can come to meetings and listen to people sharing their hope, strength, and whatever, and experience, and maybe and get identified as what they're talking about. Maybe I'm not too alcoholic, but I'm at least a mini alcoholic. So let me keep coming back. And then, so then it may not be the one-on-one that's going to convince anybody. It will be the meetings, yeah, and this loving presence that expresses itself through our group conscience. And then the meetings do a lot of the supporting also. Yeah, I feel. So, so this idea that it was a disease, also, when you have a virus, you don't think it's you, do you? When you have the flu, you don't think it's I'm flu. Because you have a recognition of being something, and then that something gets taken over by a flu or a virus, and then hopefully it lasts 10 days or whatever, and then it leaves and its dominant influence wanes, and now you're back to being Paul again. So you feel, because while you're under the influence of the flu, you usually feel shitty and your attitude is bleaker and you're seeing the dark side of things instead of the bright side of things. And you could be sitting there claiming it was you all the time, but thank God you have an understanding. No, I've been taken over by a virus, and so don't make any life decisions, or don't tell your girlfriend you're planning on leaving her, because it may be the virus talking. Yeah, it may be you're sick, right? Obviously. But the dilemma with the disease or the parasite of alcoholism, that which we go back to when we have a virus, when the virus wanes, we don't go back to us when it comes to alcoholism. We go back to the parasite. We're identified as the virus. So, yeah. So there's like no going back. Oh, now I'm back to my own self. There's no sense of my own self. It's already been commandeered by the parasite. So you're thinking you're the virus the whole time, even when it's acutely, making you sick as hell, or not. You're still occupied by the virus because you're identified as it. You don't see the disease aspect of it. You don't. Because we've been taken over, and it's been a very long takeover. We've taken ourselves to be that which took us over. So we're actually the flu in a way. Yeah. And in this way, I don't know, I would say if being too alcoholic would mean for years. You know what I mean? It's like having the flu for years. You've crossed the line that like a weekend, break isn't going to change anything. You need a program of recovery. You need a way of life if you're a real addict and a real alcoholic. You need something that's available at all times, so those new habits of being sober can stick. Yes, so that you have you have an access to get out of yourselves by all the service that our AA community provides. So you can, jack into that, and you can start having a sense of not being the virus finally. Yeah, it's sort of like having the flu for 12 years. You start having the experience of relief from the flu with the hopes, and if you have an understanding, hopefully one that we're delivering here, that when you feel free from the flu, you see you're not the flu. Yeah, that's the important point. Because if you don't see you're not the flu's going to claim to be the one who's getting relief from the flu. So the flu will continue, and it may not be such an extreme case of the flu, but will be like a drip, drip, drip case of the flu. Yeah, but the flu will still be dominating, and we'll be living as the flu, not having one. We will be had by one. Yeah, there's a difference in having a flu or being had by the flu. Yeah, being had by the flu, you think you're the flu. Usually, when you get sick, the dominant preoccupation as you overrides it after a few days. Yeah, you don't think you're the flu, do you? I mean, I don't feel, I don't think people who seemingly get cancer, I don't think they think they're cancer. It doesn't, I feel like there's still there's a possibility of relief because they're not cancer, really. But in us, the bondage of self continues before recovery and after recovery. It's still there. Yeah. And maybe the effects are minor or more mild, but still the dominance of the virus or the flu or the alcoholism is pretty strong. Yeah. So it's still screwing up your life quite a lot, even though you're not feeding it with what it wants, which is the alcohol or the drugs. It still's got a lot of momentum through sucking our energy up. Yeah, really. I mean, so the idea of the disease could be really amplified, and you could see what it's like to have a disease and apply that to alcoholism. But this disease of alcoholism has a mental quality. The problem really resides in the mind. And the disease is that the flu takes you over and then keeps telling you you're the flu. Yeah. And after a while, you forget what you are and you take yourself to be what it's telling you. Yeah. That's the bondage of self. It's the act of being identified as it. So what's a spiritual awakening? In a way, it's like a reset almost, so that whole dilemma of identification, because it's stubborn, it regroups quite a lot. That whole idea, that identification can be neutered by the recognition of your real condition, which is spirit. Yeah. So we wake up to our real condition, and then we start seeing the false conditions that we used to call real. Yeah. We can recognize what's false from the reality. You're not going to recognize what's false from the false. You're going to recognize what's false from the reality. And the whole point of the steps is a spiritual awakening. Yeah. And then the agenda is to help other people. But the spiritual awakening is really waking up from the flu or from the virus that has taken us to be the flu and the virus. Yeah. We wake up to that fact. Thank God, because it is a fact. We are a spiritual condition. We don't have one. We are one. Yeah. And then in that recognition, a lot of the things that would trigger a real heavy outbreak of the flu or the virus won't happen. You'll have a sanity concerning the insanity that precedes the first drink. So the program becomes really, you're in a state of not starting. You just don't drink. Yeah. So there's no need to learn all these tricky ways how to stop. You just don't start. It's a beautiful solution, because you'd have to do something to fuck it up. Yeah. If you just don't do something about the drinking, if you don't start, you won't have to go through the whole thing of stopping again. Which, yeah, you just don't start for 33 years. It's pretty good. And there's a lot of space there. There's a lot of qualities in that emptiness of the dominance of the flu and the virus. Yeah. You can get quite healthy. And then obviously something that would have really blown your life up will maybe be an occurrence for a half hour. You call your sponsor, you go to a commitment. Yes. You share about it. And you don't get an ink tattoo. It's like a henna tattoo. It washes off in an hour or two, instead of ruining your life and fucking getting divorced and shit like that. Yeah, you just, oops, okay. It's like a minor hiccup, not a fucking giant, hurricane force thing. So, yeah. And then we live a day at a time with the potential of that virus in us. Yeah. But now it's not dominating us. Yeah. But I don't see how that state can stabilize unless you realize the root of the problem is the act of being identified as the flu or as the virus. Yeah. So it's like the virus having the virus. So the virus can't get out of the virus. Self can't get out of self. Just look at self as a virus in a way, and then maybe it'll make more sense to you. And using the understanding that it's a disease, you can explain it and have some understanding. Yeah. Wait a minute. That sounds pretty clear. Yeah. Something has taken me over. I've been misplaced or I've been moved over. And now that which says it's having the virus is the virus itself. So, Jesus. Yeah. So then the virus itself says, you're not too virusy, you're not too alcoholic. If you just manage better, you could, this is just a passing phase of 30 years. Yeah, it's coming just to go, I'm sure, because you're not too alcoholic, Paul. You're just a, so this would be the virus talking. As us. Oh, let me diagnose myself. Oh, I don't think I'm that fucked up. So, yeah. So I feel the recognition of these things happen slowly over time in the beginning. I had a lot of rude awakenings to the house of cards I was living in. I did. And then basically, if you went to the foundation of the house of cards, that card had a picture of me on it. I was basically the foundation of the house of cards, and I can't pull myself out of it. It's just another part of being the house of cards. So the program pulled that card out. Yeah. Now it keeps appearing that there's a house of cards, but I know it's not true because of what's done for me, what I couldn't have done for myself, which is this higher power revealed to me that I am not of that, really. Yeah. I am not of that. And so I have the ability to see false evidence before it appears real. Yeah, so it's a nice state to be in because I could say some stupid shit today and cause a lot of trouble if I would keep taking the false evidence as real. And if it got the hold of my tongue and it spoke its untruth to others, it could cause a lot of fucking catastrophe. Yeah. But now most of the time, and oh, so what? It's driving me crazy. Well, because it wants to get out. It's like my dog drives me crazy because it wants to get out. Well, this head's driving you crazy because it wants to get out. It wants you to do something. It wants you to act out. Because as soon as you act out, it really has you. Now you're going to have a consequence that could last the rest of your life based on that acting out. Yeah. It's dying to get out. That's why it's trying to drive us crazy. So you'll finally do what it wants you to do. It wants to bring us to that fuck it. So we go fuck it. And then we do something. Yeah. And then that doing something, the door gets blown off and it comes in and out and does its little rampage or its quiet, assassinating. And there you go. The bondage of self is now erupted into some heavy consequences. Can't take it anymore. Yeah. I'm talking with people, if you make a deal with the devil, you're going to lose because the deal, he doesn't play by any rules, or it doesn't. He'll say, all right, yeah, I'll give you this, and then I'm gonna extract that. Yeah. So just stay sober if you're sober, and if you're not sober, maybe you're too alcoholic, and you need to listen to something. Yeah, you've crossed the line, and there's that which says it's crossed the line can't uncross the line. Yeah, we need, like it said here at that last page. This is basically the only understanding you need. The main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. And what's AA offering? A life of spiritual principles, yeah? What's AA offering? A lot of time to recognize that this is true, yeah? That you're too alcoholic. I'm going to use that from now on. Hey, bro, you're just too alcoholic. That's all. That's the only way I can explain you. You're just too alcoholic. So, so hopefully in that state, under that diagnosis, you have a little willingness to believe or a willingness to be willing to believe, whatever. Just fool yourself and freaking just do the program day at a time and see what happens. Yeah. So, all right. That's that.
Thanks, Paul. Wonderful. riff on our working with others. Anybody have any questions or any comments to make? Raise your virtual hand and let's get this show on the road. Let's put Paul to work.
Hey, Mickey, but
Yes.
let me, just for the people, in the program, the basics of it, as he talks about, they found the best way to sort of get out of oneself is to work with other two alcoholics. So, yeah. Yeah, so why is that? You could diagnose it easily because being folded in on yourself, being not able to get out of self, the service pulls that attention and interest out of that orbit and you feel different. Yeah. And then usually what you feel is you feel bigger and you feel like you're available and you sense a presence. Well, there you go. Yeah. So in a way, what we fall back on is that claustrophobic, cocoon-like terminal uniqueness. So the commitments and service will pull that attention and interest out. Because at that point, the attention and interest isn't serving you. It's serving the lower employer, the lower power, the parasite. So you need to have that interest and attention pulled out. And, you could try to think yourself out of it, do that. But basically, just doing service gives you that example, gives you that free sample. Yeah. And once you get a flavor of it, it can become so. As they used to say, if you believe, you can conceive, whatever. So now you believe that I feel better when I'm doing this. Fucking, that's not rocket science. He says, okay, I'm going to do this more. Yeah. And then you realize service. And then to me, if you're in the program, hospital and H&I commitments after you've been in sober 6 months are really, they used to pull out the interest and attention the farthest and the quickest in my experience. Yeah. Because I'd be totally in that little hall of mirrors of Paul, and I'd go and at least it would maybe be able to withstand for 10 minutes and then it would break and then I'd be, the attention would be freed. I'd be feeling that presence and listening to the other people and I felt so much better when I left. So I would take advantage of that if you're in the beginning of recovery. Yes, so there.
H&I certainly has kept me on the path and in the right state, out of myself.
Yes. Yeah.
PK's got his
what an
hand up.
incredible gift to have that. Really. Before we had no skillful means to really get out of the feelings we were having. Yeah. And the means we used were consequential and very adverse for most of us. Yeah. Now we find a new way of living where, you can recognize your own condition and then do something simple to get out of it instead of fucking, what an incredible gift. Maybe it's not the perfection of complete ease and comfort, but it's damn good. And to have gratitude for that and to honor that, I think promotes more of it coming in your life. Yeah. So sometimes they used to say, the perfection is the enemy of the good. Yeah. So this idea that, I want to be completely free. Well, listen. Yeah. If you feel better going to a Zoom on a Tuesday morning and it works, Jesus Christ, that's pretty cool. Yeah, really. I think that's awesome. Because, usually nothing worked up till it hit $500, 8 ball of Coke or something like that. And then uninvited guests would show up, the police or shit. So This is a lot. This is obviously the easier, softer way. Yeah. Yeah.
It works for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
PK has his hand up, Paul.
Who?
PK?
Oh, PK. All right, PK.
Hey, Paul, how's it going? How's everybody going? The Zoom squares shares. That's amazing. You know, when Mickey was reading this, I got a real kind of a strong vibe on like almost like the Fight Club and the Matrix. I know you, I think in the past you've ripped on the Matrix a little bit. I don't remember if you have done on the Fight Club, but I love the idea of like not really mentioning the book and let someone draw their own conclusions, let them be ready for it, because otherwise, you know, someone doesn't want to admit, like, I love the idea of what you were saying too, I'm too alcoholic. Like, until someone can have that realization themselves, if you're telling them somebody, they'll probably be on the defensive and won't want to, enjoy I mean, this book is so amazing, but I think if it's forced upon, it would be probably a different, a different interaction, where in this case, where it's sort of like even what you say, there's always that seemingly, and perhaps it's almost like, see for yourself, try it out, let life, be the, your experience, to show you. I love the fact that you kind of, it's like this open-ended thing where you're not really telling people what to do, you're kind of inviting them to it. It's so powerful when it's, I feel, offered that way. Hallelujah. What a beautiful thing. And it's so funny because the way it's, I think, handled changes it doesn't change, the content is the same, but if it's forced upon someone versus someone comes to it and has that, they draw that conclusion, it's amazing. So I didn't know if you had ripped on the Fight Club, and if you kind of feel that that's like a certain way that you want to honor and respect someone, and that way when someone wants help and is receptive to it, that's a better way to, to help share the message, other than, if you try to slam it over someone's head, that's probably not going to be very
Yeah.
effective.
Yeah. But all right, nice to see you, PK. Yeah, in that, you can get that understanding by reading the book, or you'll get that understanding by doing the opposite and realizing that doesn't work. Yeah, trying to make someone sober or something. Yes?
Yeah.
So in a weird way, it's going to work no matter what, because you either learn sort of the easy way, read the book and follow their suggestions, or go out there and make the mistakes, yeah, and then learn from them. As long as you have the basis of sobriety, there's value in all of it. So, and I'm a believer in not keeping people from their bottoms, truly. So, and the funny thing is with this, let's say you bring your car to the mechanic. The car doesn't say, no, I don't want him to work on me, or fucking, don't take my tire off and shit like that. Yes, the car just is brought there, the person fix it. But with us, see, this disease resides in the mind. So the biggest problem is the lack of the patient's understanding, really. The program of AA is sound, perfect, really. Principles, sound. Wide open door, allows a lot of opinions and fucking shit to come in. Yeah? What's the biggest problem of AA? There's people in it, really. Yeah? If we could be knocked out and really see that we're like a Ford, then when we were brought to the dealership and we'd let everyone work on us, and we'd drive better as a Ford. But we're a Ford, not thinking we're a Ford. Yeah? We're not realizing we're a run-of-the-mill, too alcoholic type. Yeah? And so we need to be worked on. Yeah? And the basic use, it's sort of, have you ever worked in the services? The worst day when you're in the services is if the owner's there watching over your shoulder for 8 hours. telling you what you should do or do that. It doesn't promote what the owner really wants. It actually makes it harder because you do better work if you aren't being hung over all day. Yeah. Watch. Exactly. So the same thing with this. Yeah. In a weird way, you could see third step as a lot of your participation is over after the third step. You do the 4 through 9, but you've just made a decision to turn your will and life over to the care of a higher power. That decision could imply, with all your critiquing and observations and assessing and forecasting and all this shit, that's been given over, hopefully. Yeah. Yes?
Yeah, it's
So
amazing. Yeah, you're
you've
right.
admitted you're screwed. Hey, all right, I'm admitted I'm a Ford that doesn't run well, and it would be best if I went to the mechanic. Yeah. I don't keep telling the mechanic what to do, what he wants. I'm just going to surrender. Yeah. But see, this thing, the dilemma is what's talking as us is the problem. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you something though? So now, remember with Ford back in the day, we used to call them fix or repair daily. So would you say that in a way, like the daily reprieve, the importance is that every day you wake up, the tendency would be for selfing, bondage to self. So in a way, like the book is like vitamins, or the principles of the book could be, like that Zen bitch slap you need every day to get you going, because otherwise, if you don't practice the principles, it's a dangerous, terrain that you
Yeah.
might be entering.
Hey, listen, people over time find what works. So some people wake up, they do their readings, they sit and meditate. Yes, then they have their coffee. They have a routine or a habit of being sober. Yeah.
Mhm.
Now the dilemma is if you think that habit is what's keeping you sober, then that could be a little scary because if you miss your daily routine, you're thinking, oh no, yeah, I believe I would wear the daily routine looser, yes, and realize I'm inherently okay.
Said that the other
but,
day. That was
but you
amazing.
know what I mean? So yeah, there's a maintenance of a spiritual condition. I believe the best maintenance of a spiritual condition is to be a spiritual condition. And I humbly believe we are one. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. I mean, it's like you said the other day, inherently, we're already okay before any of this idea of PK or Paul or
Well, of
thoughts.
course.
I love that. That's such a beautiful, what an amazing, uh, you know, uh, it's almost like a cushion that we're on, or it's just like a surface, that the substrate that kind of supports. I like what you said too. Like if you miss your meditation or your yoga, it's not the end of the world, because like you said,
Of
that
course it is.
inherently there's
Yeah.
that okayness. Yeah, that's amazing.
That would be bondage of self.
Right.
Yeah. See, this is the dilemma. So you get into meditation, then you start thinking it's the meditation that's doing it. Then if you miss the morning meditation, the forecast from your head is you're going to have a terrible day. So you can't wait to run home at noon to sit and meditate so you can mark on your little spiritual calendar, I meditated, yes? This is all the lower God playing God in your
You're
head. It
right.
doesn't mean stop meditating, but just see it's trying to play God with the meditation, just like it tries to play God with everything else. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
amazing.
There's a point where sometimes, like, circumstances don't lend, the time to do all this stuff. You have to see this is the spiritual condition is a being a spiritual condition, not a having a spiritual condition. It's
Mhm.
being one. Yes, it's much more natural. It's not there's not much thought or effort in being what we are. It's there's a lot of thought and effort taking ourselves to be what we're not, but being what we are, there's not much thought or effort. So and then you'll be drawn to the piece of, let's say, meditating. You won't be thinking, I'm paving the stairway to heaven. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not a believer in that at all.
Yeah, I
So
like what you
yeah,
said too. Yeah, about the group consciousness. It's like a peaceful presence, and I feel that like when you have these the meetings, it's like the power, even if people aren't saying anything, just their presence, like everybody's in their square kind of glowing and just being. And like you said, we don't really have to think or act or do anything. We're just our beingness. It's like collectively, it's like this, it's like this hum or this luminance or something. It's pretty awesome, man. I got to admit. I mean, I don't have to admit, but I'm gonna admit.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's the you know.
Like, who would have thunk, like you said, who would have thunk that like Zoom squares, people sharing could have this like collective energy that's so nurturing and nourishing. Who would have thunk that, right? Like a year or two ago, like you said, when you had your meetings, you know, it wasn't really Q&A. You would talk and just people listen, but then it kind of, I guess, it unfolded into something else. But wow, this is just, for me, I just love this stuff. It's just so enjoyable. It's just so, what a beautiful way to spend, a couple of hours. It's freaking awesome. I
Yeah.
love it, man. So thank you for
Well,
that.
listen. If so, because anything you participate in, there's going to be thoughts around it. Yeah, they're not your thoughts. So of course, when the Zoom started to be available, I said there was thoughts about Zoom. Yeah, I don't really like this idea. I like live meetings, whatever. Yes, but I'm always pleasantly surprised by the reaffirming of how little I fucking know. Yeah, from this head, which I love because it's a nice reminder. So you just show up, suit up, and then judge the results by the results, not by your forecast, but by the results. And I'm pleasantly amazed what this loving presence can do with this motley crew that meets on these little mornings. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, but it's not like a surprise like what? It's just an incredible reaffirming surprise. Yeah, always. Yes? So,
Yeah.
yeah. It's lovely to be wrong a lot. It is. When you're resting in what you are, but there's still obviously you're going to hear what you're not. From where you're resting, it's lovely for it to be wrong. It's constantly off. Yeah. It's just it's like a misguided missile. It just it packs a lot of power, which is ours, and it's misguided. It just fucking fires off here and there. Yeah. So give that missile over to the care of a higher power, it will be guided much, much better. Yes. It will. It will be beneficial to you and others. It will be a win-win instead of a win-lose situation. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's relief, man. Just when you riff on this stuff, it's just to me, it's very relieving to hear it. And like you said, if it's a reminder of what's already there and always there, well, hallelujah. You can't say it enough. It's just it's some great. If I'll just say one thing. Mickey had said something to me where I told her, "Look, I love to keep coming back." She's like, "Well, PK, why don't you don't do that? Just stay." So we can stay this all the time, man. What to me, like, what do we say in New York? Holy cannoli. You can stay. You don't have
Hey, listen. Let's say you have a guitar, yeah?
Uh-huh.
And then, but the sound of the guitar is really going to have a lot to do with what's playing it, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So after 33 years of this guitar being played by an anonymous artist, yeah? I have an intimation with that finger picking, yeah. Yeah. It's got it has a whole different comprehension of live music, of the living of a life, completely. Yeah, it doesn't think like the thought system because it doesn't think. Yeah, it's got a whole different way about it, and that way can be about it through you, and you recognize the tree by its fruits. Yeah, AA planted me underneath a certain tree, and those fruits have been coming out 33 years, I've recognized the tree by the fruits. Yes, I recognize the seamlessness of the mind of this spirit. Yeah.
I love it. And like the last Thursday, your meeting, you closed it out with the song. I think you had said something to the effect, "You've been delivered, free from the bondage of self. Wake up, and rejoice." So maybe what we can do is take your soundbite and put that to music, because in a way, what a joy to know that we've already been delivered. You know, all you got to, like you said, grace is freely given. All you got to do is be willing to accept it. It's pretty damn easy. Thank goodness. You know what? Thank God. You know, man, I'm just, I'm really in gratitude. I know it's the message moving through you, but nevertheless, man, what a relief, man. Blessed relief, man. Thank you so
But
much.
so PK, look at this. So the dilemma is powerlessness. Yeah. So
Mhm.
when you're too alcoholic or too addictive, you become quite familiar with powerlessness. You do. And the frustration when you think you should have power when you don't, and the fucking anger and the vindictiveness and just the cynicalness that happens when you keep acting as if you have some power when you don't have the power. Yeah. But there's plenty of power around, but you don't have it. Yeah. So to see, and then to see all of the machinations and the consequences and the tattoos that you picked up by living from this, being too alcoholic without any understanding. Yeah. And then to have that change to the point that the problem does not exist for you, that's a fucking incredible solution. Now, what is that but an incredible demonstration of power?
Mm.
Yeah? That no human power could seemingly do it or didn't do it, and yet some power did. Now, we can throw out that it's a human power because that's how it's presented in the book. No human power could do it, but a power can do it. Yeah, so we give it the name of a higher power just because we don't know what the hell it is. And really, who needs the name power? Just put yourself in the rightful position concerning it, which is let it come through you.
Mm.
Yeah, because it would like to use you. Just like the old employer, employ means to use, the new employer would like to use you,
Mm-hmm.
but for much different purposes and for a completely different view. Even though your apparatus will take in the same information, it will collate it completely differently. Yeah. So it will take, so this is what they call the Holy Spirit in the Course in Miracles. The Holy Spirit takes in the information the brain delivers, and it says in the Course in Miracles, the brain interprets to the body of which it is a part. Well, the spirit doesn't interpret it to the body. It interprets it to spirit, yes? So the
Mm.
Holy Spirit is interpreting the same information, not to you as a body, but to you as spirit, yeah?
I love it, man.
The same information, same work, same jade plant, seeing, same dog, same cat, same clothes, same this, same that, but the attitude and outlook is completely directedly differently. Completely, yeah? So, and you leave the reliance on a failed system, and now you're at the effect of a working system. Yeah, so now you have intuitive thoughts. Now you have an energy concerning some people. It's not like they're bad or good, but you like to avoid them, let's say. Yeah. So all this stuff starts to happen and you follow it. And if you don't follow it, you learn that way. If you follow it, you learn that way. If you follow it, hey, I'm going to keep following it. If you don't follow it, I should have followed it. Yeah. So there's value no matter what happens. And the base for us, the baseline as the physicality is sober, being sober. Because once you enter to a 2-2 alcoholic, if you enter drugs and alcohol in it, it changes the diameter, the specs of the ballpark. Yeah, it just does. Yeah. And you may not be, you first of all, you'll be surprised. And once again, you'll be frustrated, and it's maybe an urge will come over again and a craving, and you're screwed completely. Yeah.
Listen,
You're
you know, I
immediately
love it.
back to being used by something else. So let's, the sobriety is the key physically because it allows a lot of other possibilities. Yeah.
No, you're
That's
right. I
the
mean,
value, really.
having directly experienced, drugs and alcohol firsthand, you're absolutely right. It's almost like I turn myself over to them. But like you said, that sobriety, is such a, it can be so, satiating and so empowering. But I think, like you said, the recognition has to be there. But you know what? It's like you said, it's almost no effort on our part. It's such a joy, man. And
Well,
those
that's
meetings.
how it turns out. Just look at the progression of the descriptions of the effects of recovery
Mhm.
from page 63 to page 84.
And
Page
that's the proof in the
63,
pudding.
you sincerely take the position of the third step, and then you get established in that, and it changes the effects. 84, now you've been restored to sanity. Now you hit an effect of the problem doesn't exist for you anymore. You've been placed in a position of neutrality with no thought or effort on your part. It's a fucking miracle. You've been reborn. That's a whole different than I found a parking space in front of the meeting. Yes, these are usually different effects. Yeah, by just staying with this program. Because time, and we're in an event of time, produces a lot of impossible, like mutating agents to seem possible. Yeah, you can be like totally at peace at 9 o'clock in the morning, and 9:03 it's Armageddon. I mean, time can do a lot of magic tricks. Yeah. So we need a way of life because sometimes the willingness may not be there, but because we're in the right habits, that bridges us to the next sense of willingness. Yeah. So the habit keeps us keeping on, keeping on. And the more that you're made available, the more available is made for you, really.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, that's why I always like to speak at at regular meetings when everyone's talking about how it is, I'm fucked and this and that. That's going to change. Sobriety progresses just like the disease supposedly does. It does. It's gonna be the easier, softer way for sure. I mean, you know, what happens? How many inventories on resentments are you going to do if you don't have that many resentments?
Great
Yeah,
question.
they're not going to be. It's not going to be a long inventory, really, because you don't have any today. You know. So what's the point? So yeah, yeah. So nice to see everyone. Anyone else? Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, bro.
Let me get in here. I don't see any more hands, Paul.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, wait a minute.
Uh,
Taya?
Everybody, I'm Taya. Happy to be here. This is my first time at this meeting. Paul, I heard you speak at the candlelight meeting in Mill Valley. Gabe got me there. He's like, there's a great speaker. And I was there. And then I was just at the gym and he sent me the link. So I jumped on because I'm just following that little tug in my solar plexus, and that's like my higher power, that little tug. I didn't think I was going to say anything or ask a question, but what stood out to me in your share was when you spoke of your story, remembering the part of you that was free between the ages of 1 and 3 or something like that, right? And then that moment of awareness of all of a sudden you were thinking and you
Yes.
got booted out of the moment. And I, you know, all these years of inventories, and I just finished on Sunday, I just did another 4th step in the sister program. My sponsor is a double winner, so it was both. It was AA and Al-Anon, and it, you know, man, I feel like I'm in a chrysalis right now, and Spirit's doing another, like, you know, when you're in the chrysalis, in the I'm disintegrating again to liquid before the butterfly comes out. You know, that's what happens. And I feel that's what happens in these programs. It's this alchemical psychic change. And so I'm in a disintegration process, and it's not so comfortable. So I'm sitting here on a Tuesday, knitting, breathing, and knowing I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, like showing up to that meeting at 8:30 p.m. on a Saturday night, and following the little tug. So my question is more like, would you elaborate more on that? Because I remember that through these inventories and doing trauma work as well, outside help, is going back and remembering that little one. So when you shared that, it just was, and the way you shared it was, I relate to being that, you said that youngster where you talked to a girl, you were 12 or something, maybe, I can't remember. And you thought about it for 5 hours afterwards or something. Does she like me? And I'm like, I'm not 12 anymore, but this last 4 step was all about that insanity of mind instead of alcohol or food. I have, 30 years of recovery from the food disorder. It's like the people, places, and things. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been suffering. It's so painful to be disconnected from my source connection when I'm in that flow. And I'm like, please, my sponsor said, go home for that hour on Sunday, which I did. I read the pages where it says, be quiet and listen, and then read step 6 and 7 and be ready to have this be removed, because I can't do it. I can't stop the obsessive thinking. So I know I'm rattling off a little bit. So if there's a question in there, it's, can you talk about anything I've just said in response? Yes. Okay, thanks.
Yes. So there's something happening, thinking, yeah? But what is the thinking made up? How is it used? It's used to imply there's a thinker, yes? That you're the thinker of these crazy thoughts. Yeah, that's how they're usually held. So you can see, if you take a thought or just any word, let's say money, and then health and relationships, and you look, there's a reaction to those words, and then you can change that word without changing any of the letters of it, which is just putting the word my in front of it. So my money, my health, my thoughts. The difference is huge, yes? Yes or no? Yes, yes. So the difference is huge. So the thoughts aren't driving you crazy. It's that they're yours is how they drive you crazy. Seriously. So there's a transfer of meaning or power from you to them through the word my. Yeah. And so suddenly, and most of them at that point are truly presenting false evidence with the hopes that it will appear real to you. Yeah. It's more apt to appear real to you if the thoughts are presented as your thoughts, to tell you the truth. Because you could see the insanity of Stanley's thoughts if you're not Stanley. But those same thoughts that are producing insanity in Stanley, as Stanley's, if they were held as yours, they would be producing an insanity. So it's not the thoughts, obviously. So let's just get clear on the diagnosis, tell you the truth. So it's not thoughts, it's my thoughts. So there's an ownership of thoughts. So what does AA give us? It gives us a possibility by hearing people share their thoughts and their feelings, and they're acting out based on those thoughts and feelings. They sure sound similar to my thoughts and my feelings and my acting out. Yeah. So maybe they're just not ours. Yeah. That was one of the first big reliefs I received, was recognizing a lot of thoughts as alcoholic thoughts, because it took the ownership away from them, and I felt better and different, and I had more room to move wearing a thought or an alcoholic than my thought. Yeah, my thought's a pretty fucking tight fit. So that, seeing that they just a suspicion, because I would go to meetings and I'd hear people talk about their thoughts, feelings, and what they did. And it's, I could only come to two conclusions. How did these people get my thoughts, or they're not my thoughts? So I used the term alcoholic, and that cleaned out a lot of, it just helped with that, all the thoughts, I could at least say this bunch was alcoholic, and it brought a relief. And then that relief brought more realizations about all thoughts as basically not mine. Yeah. And then therefore, when thoughts would come and they were presented as mine, a lot of them across the board lost influence or power. Some were not seen through for a period of time, and they would produce an effect, but the effects would get lesser and lesser, because I had a clearer understanding. They're not my thoughts. I've never had a new download about, well, they're Marie's thoughts or they're a fucking Martian's thoughts. No, it's just, they're not yours, Paul. That's it. That's all you need to know. And then let it work on you. And it has. Yeah. So, so now the head usually was like a CNN broadcast, is now Comedy Central broadcast. Yeah. The same thoughts. They always are presented as mine, but I'm not that one that they're thinking about. Hallelujah. So that's how it came about for me, a traveling lighter through thoughts, because the problem resides in the mind, and the problem delivers its problemness through thoughts most of the time. Yeah. So you and I are there as an audience almost, and basically something's going to appear to be real or not. Yeah. The thoughts, false evidence appearing real, or false evidence appearing as false. Yeah. We're not going to be the arbiter of that. Hopefully what's happened to us through this program, and that aspect of us called the innermost or the unsuspected resource or the higher power, is going to be the arbiter of that. Yes? Yeah. So now you live a lot freer from the thoughts that you thought you were having that really actually had you, basically. Yeah. So look at the my in your life. Do an inventory of that. Just do a simple inventory. Money. I want everyone to have a lot of money. My money. I don't want anyone to have my money. Yeah, there you go. What's that? Selfishness, self-seeking, and frightened, inconsiderate, and dishonesty. Okay. I've just done an inventory on self. Self is represented in the head in our language by the word my. It's not a problem. It's my problem. It's my this. It's my that. It's all an owning of shit we have nothing to do with. Seriously, you need to take a business inventory and see how this fucking thing is doing what it's doing, because it's causing us to own a lot of shit we have nothing to do with. Yeah. Yeah. Mostly under the title unsaleable goods. So there you go. That's what, if you it's just like this. If you do an inventory, so let's say you do the fourth step and the fifth step. So you go into the fourth step with your resentments, your fears, your harms to others in pursuit of what you want. You make a list of them with the hopes that you're going to see a pattern. And then you go through the fourth and fifth step, and you go and you leave the fourth and fifth step with my resentment, my fears, my what I did to others. You've missed the whole point of the inventory, which is to see self's manifestations in your life. You're still calling them yours. There you go. Get clear about that. Seriously, read page 64. Being convinced self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Are you convinced of that? Do an inventory with that understanding, and you will be, because you'll see how self defeated you, and stop calling it yours. Yeah. It says self's manifestations, or let's say Stanley's manifestations. Why do we keep calling Stanley's manifestations ours unless we're identified as Stanley? And what's great news is you're not Stanley. Now, if you were Stanley, it could be it would be captured by self trying to get out of self, but you're not Stanley. Yeah. So basically, you can see Stanley's manifestations in your life and see them as not your manifestations. Yeah, that's a crucial understanding that's being missed quite a lot. So, yeah. Try it. Do a mini inventory, 5-minute one, and just see, all right. See, I remember when I did the sex inventory, most of my pursuit of sex had nothing to do with sex. It was self-esteem. Yeah. I was feeling so bad about myself. The only thing to convince me that I was somewhat okay was if a pretty girl would sleep with me. Then I would think I must be okay if she would let me sleep with her. But then that wouldn't last long. If I saw she had a mole on her left cheek or something would disqualify her, and I'd have to keep going out. Not for sex, but for self-esteem. Yeah, because I felt unbearable, because I knew what I was fucking doing was insane, but I didn't know I wasn't doing it. I thought I was completely the doer of it, and I did not feel good, truly. So I'd have to trick myself to feel better by doing things, sort of like making it with pretty women, or who I deemed to be pretty. It had nothing to do with the sex, really. It had nothing to do with connection. It had to do with self-esteem. Yeah. Wow. I had no idea until I did the inventory. And I saw it. Yeah. And then I realized a whole lot of shit that I thought I was doing for a certain reason had nothing to do with that reason whatsoever. So the beautiful thing about AA's inventory, it produces an answer that's not yours. That's the whole point. Because you're reacting and living from what you think is your answer. You think you understand you don't. Yeah. What happens with that, you do an inventory and AA produces a different answer than you do. That's why it works. Yeah. I remember there's a famous saying in this book, The Course in Miracles, you're never upset for the reason you think. Yeah. Well, that's a pretty absolute statement. You're never upset for the reason you think. Well, give me a little break. No, you're never upset for the reason you think. I don't think that's true. There you go. I beg to differ. All right. It was him. He fucked me over. Yeah. All right. So I hope that helped. Look at the ownership of shit you have nothing to do with. Yeah, it's the head. You can't nonchalantly listen to the head all day. It has a narrative that is not based on fact. Yeah, you're going to be misled. You are. No doubt about it. I mean, you're going to be taking false evidence as true. I mean, that's like being blind almost in the middle of the day. Yeah. So, yeah. And as it said in this reading, and we try to do it with hopefully art and flair, is to impress upon the person the futility of the situation they're in. Yeah. the futility of self trying to get out of self. I think that was, let me see where it says. It said something like that. You know, share about how fucked he is. They are. You know what I mean? Yeah. I've had it happen a lot. People share for 15 minutes to me, and afterwards I say, you're fucked completely. Now go to a meeting, and they go, that makes no sense exactly. It doesn't make any sense to you. That's why it works. You think you should go look for a job when you don't want to look for a job. You're just creating more stress and fucking tension in you. Go to a meeting. Yeah. Let me tell you how fucked I am. Hey, you're fucked. I understand. I get it completely. There's no way out. I thought you were going to say something, you know, hopeful. No, you're fucked. It's hopeless. That's like the greatest moment when you finally give up the ghost. It is. There's no better moment than that. The reliance on the self is not relied upon for maybe that split second. Finally, there's a true assessment of how screwed you are. That can change your life. That resetting there can change your life. Yeah. Because this system doesn't get that it's failed. It just, as it says, the main delusion is it may be confronted with tons of evidence that its managing doesn't work, but it still says, if I could only manage better, it will. It never comes to terms with the evidence at hand. Self can't get it. Self can't get out of self. It's that simple. You're not going to convince it that it doesn't, oh, all your tricks aren't going to work. It's going to think it has some new ones. It is. I don't know. I was struck sober. It looked at, in my experience, you know, I got run over twice by a car. Tons of shit happened. You would think that would change the light, but nothing did. So the power that be just decided to intervene and just whack me with you're fucked. And not only that, because that could have disappeared in 2 days with a lot of appalling going on, and it introduced me to this way of life. I went to my first meeting the night of that recognition in the morning. And I didn't even, someone brought me there on a deal that if you can stay at my place if you went to a meeting. So I did. And then I've been sober ever since. So there you go. Now that's power to me. Yeah. Do you think that power has been withdrawn or is in an undisclosed location? It's right where we are at all times. Yeah. The habit is to access everything through the head. You can access it through the power. There's going to be an accessing. Why do you think it's only going to be one way? Yeah. Perhaps there's a better way. Trusting the infinite rather than the finite self. There you go. Learn what it looks like to trust finite self. Have an understanding that works. Yeah. How are you trusting finite self? Well, thoughts of self called yours is trusting finite self. Yeah. Okay. Can you change that? No, but you can't tell the truth about it. So the system keeps reinforcing the system. How can I trust it? Yeah. It's not out to better me. It's out to survive or preserve it. Yeah. It's like Hal in 2001. It's taken over the mission without me knowing it. Yeah. So, yeah. And as soon as you know it, you know you're outmatched. So you're open for a higher power to come in. Yeah. Because the lower power doesn't respect anything else other than a higher power. It doesn't respect you. It doesn't. It runs over you all day. Yeah. Shit. You're not a a forceful foe to it. You're subdued. The host has been completely neutralized by the parasite. It's feeding off of us, using us for transportation, living through us. It's amazing. You're not, it has no fear of you coming out of the trance. Just have another drink. You're not too alcoholic. Don't worry. You can get it. You can start tomorrow. I want to watch Die Hard 9, drinking beers. Wow. Who would want to miss that? So yeah. Thanks everybody. I've got to go back to my asylum room soon. So I've been out a little too long. I've been out a little too long already. You don't know I'm wearing like white gown underneath this top. Yeah, just got hospital whites on. This is all a virtual reality. None of this is going on. I'm in an asylum. Yeah, I'm a patient Paul H.
We are the asylum, Paul.
They bring me out every Tuesday and Thursday. I feel so much better. Thank you. Yeah. All right. You want to say goodbye now? Is that enough?
Yeah,
You
it looks like there aren't any more hands, Paul. So let's take it away.
Yes. Let's. I'm right next to another Paul Hedderman. Well, nice to see you, Paul. Michael, Stacy, always a pleasure. Thanks for running the show with Mickey. Mickey, as always, fantastic. We got Paul in the UK, Paul in the USA. Yes. Kristen, nice to see you, Kristen. Yeah. Anu, there she is. Joseph C., our friend from France. Nice to see you, Joseph. Yep. Stefan on having never left. We got Jacob and Alex are back again. That's nice. When the West Coast meets the East Coast. Yes. It's the most coast. So we got PK from Long Island. Now I feel PK is also in an asylum also. Yeah. Yeah. I can tell he likes to speak after Tuesday Jello. Yeah. They put something in the Jello that's working. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you, man.
All right, PK. See you. We got Maria K. Nice to see you, Maria K. Thanks for joining us today. We got Walter from the Netherlands. Always a pleasure. My brother from another
Good
mother.
evening, Paul.
Nice to see you, Walter. We got Jason from San Diego. He's chilling out. Yes. It's a pleasure writing songs, doing things like that. Nina. Nina. Very nice. Always to see you, Nina. Nice to see you. Tommy, I've never seen Tommy, but he tells me he's from Ireland, but he's got a, who knows who it is. Kaiser from Los Angeles, yes, formerly from Minnesota. Now, if that ain't progress, I don't know what is. Yeah. Otherwise, I like Minneapolis. I've been there, unless the weather intervenes. Yeah, I like it there. We got Heather. Nice to see you, Heather. Have you been here before?
No, first time. Miss Maria K invited me today.
Oh, nice to see you, Heather.
Nice to see you.
Good. Let's we've got Maggie. Always a pleasure for Maggie to drop in. Kana from Dublin. We got Elaine and Carl, the dynamic duo. There they are. From my homeland. Oliver from Berlin. Nice to see Oliver. We got Amy from Seattle. Thanks, everyone. It's a pleasure. We'll be here. I don't know if we're having that meeting today, Thursday at 4:30 Pacific time for the non-duality. I'll have to figure out. But if you don't have any, if you're not doing anything, drop in, see. I don't even think it's on the website. I got to talk to Mike and have him put it up. All right. So there will be access on the website if we're having one. And then we'll be here Thursday and Wednesday night. We do non-duality. All of it's on Zen Bit Slap under events. All right. That's it. Mickey, everyone else, thank you so much. Another wonderful interlude. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.